Hi, Arturo Riera here, MisterLatinJazz, and I'm interviewing somebody that's not necessarily considered in the Latin jazz genre, but somebody who, from a historical perspective, is very important to what's called Latin rock, Chicano rock, West Coast rock, California rock, the identity of West Coast Chicanos through their music, starting with the 60s all the way through. And his name, by day, is Dr. Bernardo Gonzales III, my dentist, but at night he's also known as Dr. Rock, one of the most prolific promoters and documenters of Latin rock on the West Coast. How are you, Dr. Rock?
How are you doing? Thank you for that. Down the peninsula to Redwood City. I grew up in Redwood City, but my grandparents and my parents worked here. So I was always here, you know, coming to San Francisco. I always felt close to San Francisco. And, you know, my uncles went to school in the Mission. They came up from Tijuana. They went to the Mission High School with Carlos and his brother, Jorge. Same time. And, you know, there was this big music explosion in the 60s from the Beatles to rock and roll, and then, you know, now you have this Latin sound. But I didn't start coming to San Francisco till I went to college, San Francisco State, UC San Francisco. So that's when I got involved in the community. I'd always been a part of it, but I became a little more involved at that point. You know? And I think it gave me a better perspective coming from the outside, and then coming in to the community that was already very vibrant at that time.
And you've decided to stay here. You actually have your practice here in San Francisco.
Yeah, you know, my goal was to go back to Redwood City. You know, come here, go to school, and then go back to Redwood City. But as I lived here while I was going to San Francisco State and UC San Francisco and becoming involved in the protest marches from San Francisco State during the affirmative action. So I was getting involved in protests at the time. So here I was, suburban guy, coming into this hotbed of political action and getting involved. And then as I graduated from San Francisco State, my dad already had a business. Him and I had a business here on 24th Street. I was already starting to get involved with the local Merchants Association. And I was like, why am I leaving? This is, you know, I got roots here now.
This is my home. Yeah.
Been here 35 years now with this practice.
Now, when you come to your office, what you're struck by, and one of the ways you earn your name of Dr. Rock, is your office is really a museum of rock posters, and in particular rock, American rock, but also what we would call Latin rock, Chicano rock as well, but San Francisco rock too, very much what was played here in the groups that were important in Northern California and the Bay Area. So right off the bat, you're struck with, you know, this incredible museum, including guitars, and it's clear to me that you're a fan. Number one and foremost, you're a fan, and that's why, you know, this music moves you so much, and it moves you to do things that are musical. So I do a lot of musical stuff, and I have a checklist of things I do. Reel off all the things that you do musical right now that's earned you the name Dr. Rock.
Well, you know, you're absolutely right. I was a rock fan. Beatles captured me back in the 60s like everybody else. You know, and it's funny, I already had long hair. My dad used to cut my hair like twice a year. I grew up with long hair. People ask me, why do I still have long hair? That's how I grew up. I feel uncomfortable with short hair. And like I said, my dad would cut it when it bothered him, right? So I always had long hair. Then the Beatles came along and the music just hit everyone. And it was a hotbed for music in San Francisco, you know, and all the music that was around, you know, had box of 45s, you know, and my parents wanted me to learn violin. I was playing it like a guitar. I wanted to play guitar. And then Santana comes around. That was now you're taking a Hispanic element, Mexican, playing rock and roll and just taking the world by storm. You know, I tell people, I do a lecture on Latin rock, and I show them the footage of Woodstock. I was a freshman in high school when Woodstock came out, and I saw Soul Sacrifice. You want to talk about a turning point in someone's life? When I saw Soul Sacrifice, I no longer wanted to play baseball. I was like, whatever they're doing up there, that's what I want to do. You know, and I picked up a guitar, and I'd already been playing the little drums, and that just, man, and I tell people, every Latin rock band around is trying to reach that. Whatever that is right there, that is the pinnacle of Latin rock. You know, if you ask Carlos Santana or Greg Raleigh, are you playing Latin rock? They say no, it's Afro-Cuban. Okay? But to everyone else playing Latin rock, that is the pinnacle. Trying to reach that combination of percussion, guitar, bass, everything coming together, keyboards. Man, that is it right there. And people are still trying to hit something.
Well, you mentioned something really important. The minute you saw it, your life changed. And for a lot of folks of that generation, and I remember those days too, it was an identity thing as well.
Exactly.
And just like Marvin Gaye kind of first back then for the African American community, really people who lived in impoverished communities, spoke the truth about what was going on the streets. And in a lot of ways, the Santana, you know, basically brought to rock and roll what was very familiar to us. So it was very common, the congas, the timbales, you know, the Afro-Cuban music, but to your point also the Chicanismo of, you know, getting back to your roots and being who you were, you know.
You gave it a whole new dimension that you could identify with.
And also, back then the pressure was to very much assimilate, to be very much like the main culture, and many of us, you know, because of our looks and background, there's no way we could. So here was another way to be.
Exactly.
A legitimate way to be ourselves and still be, you know, cool and hip and into the rock scene. So you mentioned, you know, you have a couple of businesses and things, but you do a lot of things as Dr. Rock. I know that you have your own business that is a promotional business that puts on concerts of Latin rock. What else do you do?
You know, I started out when I was in college. I became a volunteer with Bill Graham organization. I used to go to concerts, and I found out you could volunteer for security. So I used to go to the Warfield. You know, you got no money. I got to see shows for free, get in for free, but I was part of the security staff, and I was there every weekend. And the guy who ran the security asked me, he goes, "Hey, you want to get paid for this?" I go, "You can get paid for this?" He goes, "We want to put you on the staff." So I became part of the Bill Graham security staff. We did the Day in the Greens, the Berkeley Greek Theater, and all the other venues. And I was seeing firsthand. It was learning by the seat of my pants. You know, watching how this production was going on. A band coming in and doing sound check. You know, all the pre-production things that people don't see before a show goes on. You know, and I was just soaking it up. And plus, being able to work for Bill Graham was, you know, an honor to me. And then getting paid, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So I always wanted to do that kind of thing, you know. And so when I got out and started working with the local merchants, my dad asked me to work with the merchants on 24th Street. They were doing a street fair, early 80s, when I was just getting out of dental school. And I was like, hey man, you know, I work for Bill Graham. I'm not going to come out here. Well, I did it. And once again, training experience. I met all the musicians in the area because they had to come through if they wanted to perform at the street fair. So I started meeting all these musicians. That turned me on to meeting the lead singer of Malo. And I was a big fan of Malo. And he asked me to come on and manage the band. So I did that. I managed Malo for 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that the band was even around, you know, and they weren't. They had broken up, and we slowly brought them back together, you know, starting with the lead singer. So I started doing that, and it opened more and more doors for me, and I actually left the business to get married around 98. Had a couple of kids. I thought I was done with the music business. We had done a best of CD for Malo, plus another CD. And then there was a book that came out called Voices of Latin Rock. And one of my partners was part of that book, Voices of Latin Rock, Ron Sanso. And he asked me to put on this event, a book release event. He wanted to have it at Bimbo's. And I was kind of out of the business already for about 4 or 5 years. And so I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. At the same time that we were doing this event, book release, we diagnosed my son with autism. He was 2 years old. So they actually wanted me to get a hold of the Hispanic Chamber. I hope they're not listening. But I asked them, I said, hey, you know what, the Hispanic Chamber, they're well on their way. I said, would you mind if we did this as an Autism Awareness event? They said, you know what, as long as it doesn't cost us any money, call it whatever you want. I said, great. So I turned that event into an Autism Awareness. It was going to be a one-time show. That was it. You know, we got the original Santana guys together except Carlos. We got a bunch of other people. When that show was over, people came to us and went, when is the next one? I went to my partners and I said, they want us to do this again. And they go, okay, we'll do it one more time, and then we're probably done. We just finished our 9th annual Autism Awareness Voices of Latin Rock. And we're gearing up for the 10th year, which will be next year. It's not going to be at Bimbo's. We're still putting that together. It's going to be way bigger than Bimbo. But we've been able to raise funds for autism, keep Latin rock alive, you know. And now, then once we started those shows at Bimbo's, we started doing shows at clubs, getting the local musicians out and giving them a place to play. You know, we play Slim's, Great American, Club Fox. We were doing the Avalon down in San Jose. So now we have a regular basis. We're bringing back bands like Tierra, El Chicano, Greg Raleigh, and the local bands, and tying them together. And that's where my production company finally took hold. Now we're traveling outside of California. We have a show in Phoenix next week, Latin Rock All-Stars, for 4th of July.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
For 4th of July.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new America.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people hear this story, you know, of a young man who got an education. Basically, you know, for many people, lived his dream becoming a doctor. Wow, that's big. But instead decided to pursue his passion all around music, and, you know, first in the production side, and then, you know, clearly as a fan, as a collector, and then as a promoter, and now someone who, you know, is considered a pivotal part of a scene, the Latin rock scene, you know, not only in California, but now spreading out from California, as the music did, spreading out from California to the world. So what advice would you give to someone who says, wow, man, Dr. Rock, I want to grow up and be just like that guy when I grow up? What kind of roadmap or suggestions would you give somebody?
You know, you hit on one thing, a fan. I'm always a fan. The music, new music coming out, and that's what really captured me early on. Like I said, from the Beatles, from the Beatles on, you know. I tried playing music. I play a little guitar, a little drums, a little piano. I cannot play in front of people. I tried playing in a band once, believe it or not. But those musicians, to get up on that stage and do what they do, I have a newfound appreciation for what they do. And part of the reason we work well together is they fear contracts. Okay, so that's where I come in. That's their kryptonite. But getting up on stage, that's my kryptonite. So we work well together. But for them to create and bring something, you know, and what I enjoy is creating something out of nothing, bringing a combination of bands together, and nothing better than seeing an audience just really enjoy what's happening. You know, And like you say, being a fan first.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I still love all genres of music. And just being able to do that.
Well, Dr. Bernardo Gonzales III, Dr. Rock, thank you so much for your time. We've heard kind of the arc of your life and where you've been.
One more point
Yes.
I'd like to make.
Sure.
Volunteer.
Mm.
Volunteer. Whatever your passion is. I think that when I volunteered, because I wanted to go see what was happening. That was a learning experience for me, and it affected me. That and soul sacrifice, you bring those together, and here I am today still.
Well, you know, you make a good point. In today's world, everybody says it's all about the money, and where's my money, and how much can I get paid for this, and where's the paycheck?
Yeah.
But sometimes learning requires an investment of your time.
Exactly.
And sometimes the benefit you can get, as in your case, you know, that first volunteer security experience with Bill Graham set you on the path that really now is touching not just you as a fan, but thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the world, based on the concerts that you do, the recordings, the photographs, and more important, you know, a platform to raise money and awareness for autism. Autism is a growing disease in terms, or condition in terms of knowledge and awareness of the medical community. But like any other condition or disease, you know, people talk about the masses, but often they don't talk about the niches. And in your case, you're focused on raising funds for Hispanic autism to really support those families who, on top of everything else, have to do it in a different language, in a different country, under different cultural values and mores. And it's, you know, your fundraising and awareness that's really having an impact in that community. So thank you. And as a music fan, thank you. Arturo Riera here, MisterLatinJazz. Thank you very much, Dr. Bernie Gonzales, Dr. Rock, for your time today.
Thank you.